Hey, good morning, guys. It's Dave. Today I want to talk to you about creative financing for real estate investing. One of the number one things that I hear as far as reasons people don't invest in real estate is the money, the down payment, how do I finance it, yada, yada, yada. So what this is going to do for you, this is going to show you some ways to be creative, because the more creative you are in real estate, the more successful you'll be. There's always an exit strategy, always a way to buy it. So creative financing for real estate in 3, 2, 1, intro. Okay, so the first method we're going to talk about is probably the one I'm most familiar with, which is seller financing. Seller financing is nothing short of, if the seller has equity in their property, so say they have a $100,000 house and they only owe $20,000 on it, there's $80,000 worth of seller financing there. And you could basically say, hey, I'll give you 20 grand and then I'll repay you the 80,000 in payments. So a simple way that I use a simple analogy that I use for this is, instead of giving you $10,000 for your car, I tell you I'll give you $1,000 a month for 11 months. So you're actually getting 11,000, but I don't have to have 10 grand right off the bat. There's a couple reasons that sellers like this. For one, you're deferring a huge tax bill. So if you have like $1 million apartment complex and you sell it, well, there's going to be taxes owed on that. But if you have $1 million apartment complex, you're still holding a note and someone's just making payments, tax benefits, I mean, you're not going to lose nearly as much in taxes long term. And then another reason would be like in retirement. So say when I hit like 45, 50, 60 years old, whenever I plan on just not managing real estate anymore, maybe I'll take some of my properties that I have paid off and seller finance them. So now instead of a tenant giving me $600 a month for rent, I'm only getting like $400 or $300 from the seller or from the buyer. However, I don't have any expenses, I don't have any stress. I mean, it's truly passive income. And then the benefit there, and this is not a benefit, nobody wants to do this, but if the buyer stops making payments, I mean, you're effectively acting as the bank, so you can foreclose and take the property back. So you could essentially be getting this monthly payment for 5 years, and then they stop making the payment, and all of a sudden you just like, okay, I'll take the property back and rent it again. There's a couple different exit strategies there that seller financing allows. So people always ask me, how do I get seller financing? And the most simple way that I can break this down is to ask the question, right? Like, there's no magic for it. I just ask. So sometimes I'll send like, my buddy Paul Thompson, and I'll shout him out here. I just got an email this morning from him about this method. But so I'll say like, hey, I'll pay you 50%, 60% of the home value in cash, or 75% of the home value in a traditional mortgage, or I might even give you 90 to 100% of the home value, but you got to seller finance it to me. So there's no bank involved. There's not much of a down payment involved. And then we can structure that. The other real benefit to seller financing is that the sky's the limit as far as terms. So for both of my seller financing deals, I only pay 4%. There's no crazy charges wrapped into that. So 4%, and they're both commercial properties. 4% is way better than the market rent right now. But to that seller, the one guy, he only gave me $10,000 in seller financing, and I used it with the bank note to pay. So basically, I paid 5% down on a 10-plex. Seller paid another percentage, and then the bank carried the rest. And I'm paying him back at 4% interest. But at the end of the 5-year term, he'll have made like $2 grand extra on what he gave me. So it's a little bit of an investment, and he still got a large chunk of change from the bank. I've used seller financing again, and I also did a 4%. So it's really negotiable. There's people who do interest only. There's people who do lower interest rates. There's people who do like scaling interest rates. I mean, it's really whatever you and the seller can agree to. So whatever works. Seller financing is an awesome tool. I highly recommend that you check it out. I know it's not super conventional, but I can tell you right now that I've bought 53 rental units, $3 million plus worth of real estate. We've never paid more than 6% down on a property. Seller financing is awesome. Okay, the next one is the lease option purchase. So my monstrous property that I'm going through all this chaos with right now, I bought it on a lease option. So this means I gave the guy a chunk of change and said, hey, I'm going to lease this from you. You're going to let me run the building. And then at the 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, we had a 10-year mark. Somewhere in there, I'm going to refinance out and pull all my cash out. And I'm going to take full title of the building. So I basically did a lease option purchase. So 90, and I only put 5% down. So the 95%, which counts towards principal, the 95% difference is essentially like seller financing. It's just, we're just paying it back. So it's at 4% interest. My first few bits, the first few months is interest only, and then we're gonna go up to 4% interest for the first like 5 years, and then it'll go to 5%, and then it'll go to market plus 1% or whatever. So there's some incentive in there for me to refinance or sell the property at the 3 to 5 year mark. But even if we get into the higher interest rates, it's really not that bad. So the lease option is awesome because we bought this $2.8 million building with $150,000 down. And if everything falls apart and like the worst case scenarios happen, we lose our $150,000, but there's no bankruptcy, there's no foreclosure, there's no bank involved, nothing goes on our credit record. As far as things go, it really could be a lot worse. You lose the asset, you lose your money, which is terrible. But I mean, if you think about like a normal bank issue, you stop making payments and you still lose the property, you still lose the money. Now you can't buy a property for 7 years because you've got a bankruptcy or a foreclosure or both on your record. And it is just terrible. Like your credit score, I mean, everything, your reputation is just not a good deal. So that's not an option. And then, long term, if things work out really great, execute the option, done, right? Like bought the property, refinanced the property, whatever the case may be. We got this awesome deal, tons of upside. Super cool. Okay, other people's money. Now there's a lot of different ways to structure this. You can do, hey, you want to be a partner on this deal, it's awesome, and people give you money and you partner. I did that on my lease option. Or you can do, hey, you want to lend me money and I'll give you a fixed percentage return. So some people I know, like they'll take like $100,000 and to buy a property, they'll say, I'll give you a 12% return. Here's our terms, you get it signed and, like a promissory note, make it legit, actually repay them. And then you do what you need, and as long as you earn a higher return than that, then it's a good deal, win-win for both. They're getting interest on their money that's better than what they get from most mutual funds or savings accounts for sure, and you're getting money to invest and grow your portfolio, and you maintain control of the asset. So other people's money, lots of ways to do it. Again, you got to ask for it, you got to know how to negotiate, and then you got to have a good deal, right? Like you can't just walk around and be like, hey, you want to give me $100,000? Well, what are you buying? I don't know. Unless you're guaranteeing interest, in which case they don't care. But you got to make sure you're able to foot that bill, because if you stop paying the interest back, they're going to call you for your $100,000. I haven't used the last one. It's called delayed financing. My buddy Alex Felice and I have had a few conversations about this. He mentioned it on Bigger Pockets. Basically, this would be used for like the BRRRR strategy, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And you would get with your lender and say, I want to do delayed financing before the purchase, and you set it all up. And then what you do is you purchase the property in cash, and then when you're done with the rehab and everything and you want to refinance, you just start the delayed financing, and you can only get the amount of money that you put into escrow, so whatever you paid in cash or escrow fees back, but they will then lend on that total amount. So basically you can buy a property in cash, and then like 3 months, 6 months, whenever the property is done later, they'll pull the delayed financing back. You start making payments on it at that point, and you get your cash back out for whatever's left over. So it's a really cool strategy for the BRRRR strategy. I'm actually trying to use it. I was going to try to use it a couple weeks ago, but lo and behold, I got outbid on the property. So it is what it is. I should have been faster, pulled the trigger, but I delayed. All right, so the moral of the story here, guys, is that creative financing and creativity in general with real estate is a huge asset. So this is like, real estate is the place where you get to take your imagination from when you were a young kid and just run wild with it, because you can come up with all kinds of strategies and loopholes and just whatever you want to do, provided that you and the seller agree with it. So definitely take a look into seller financing. If you got questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments. Subscribe, like the video, share the video. Love to help you out. Shoot me a message.